Hey YouTube, Kira Qualia here, bringing you all an update to my Cardfight Vanguard Levidras deck profile for post-Omniscient Awakening. We have the new version, the Destined King of Infinity, Levidras Imperio, in the latest Cardfight Vanguard booster set to strengthen the power of the Levidras deck. This new Grade 3 just adds on to the consistency that the Infinity markers are meant to do with this deck, and just like the Varga and Raziel decks we have, copying on the abilities of Divine Skill with just the addition of the added power of this new Grade 3, backing up all of the other cards to use with the Infinity markers as well. So big thanks to my buddy Nick for letting me borrow his deck for the video. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So we'll go ahead and start off with the Ride deck. For starters, we have the Energy Generator, as usual. For the Grade 0, we have our Stagnipper Dragon. When rode upon, if you went second, draw a card. Our Grade 1 is Score Piercer Dragon. If your soul has Stagnipper Dragon, when you would ride a Manta Scythe Dragon from the Ride deck, you can ride without discarding a card from your hand, saving you consistency for the cards in your hand for you to be able to use. Our Grade 2, Manta Scythe Dragon. When rode upon by a Grade 3 card with Levidras and its card name, Energy Blast 3, look at the top 5 of your deck, choose up to one Grade 3 or less card from among them, reveal it, put it into your hand, and shuffle your deck. So, indirectly, this card is definitely meant to help with the setup for grabbing the Destined King of Infinity Levidras from your deck to your hand for you to be able to use. But for the Ride deck, we're still running the Destined one of Infinity Levidras with the added power that it has for just being able to set up more in the soul as well compared to the Destined King, as well as being able to have the Persona Ride when you go into your next go-to unit. But before that, we'll go over the other Grade 3s we run. 3 copies additionally from the Destined one of Infinity Levidras, with this card having the once per turn on Vanguard ability to counterblast 1, choose one of your rear guards and one of your opponent's rear guards, put Infinity Eye markers on each of them. And when any player's unit with a rear guard with an Infinity Eye marker attack or boosts, you may have that unit get plus 10 or minus 10 until the end of that battle. If your opponent's unit got minus 10, you remove the marker and you draw a card, giving you consistency, but also making it so your opponent can't permanently have that minus 10 each time it is used against them for this play. With our big new Grade 3 being the Destined King of Infinity, the Levidras Imperio. We're running 4 copies of this card as well. This unit's also regarded as Destined one of Infinity Levidras, so you can Persona Ride off of the original one from the Ride deck as well. And during your turn, it gets plus 5 for each Destined one of Infinity Levidras in your soul, and it also gains all of their Divine Skill. So the more you put into soul with its second ability, which is a once per turn counterblast, put a card from your hand to the soul, choose any 2 of any player's rear guards and put Infinity Eye markers on each of them. If you put a Grade 3 or greater card with Levidras in its card name for this cost, you choose 3 instead of 2. So then you can set up more power in the soul with the Levidras you place into the soul, and then being able to copy the Divine Skill as well, which the Divine Skill of your Levidras allows you to choose one of your rear guards, one of your opponent's rear guards, put Infinity Eye markers on each, and then your Levidras will get plus 10 and extra critical plus 1. So then you'll have this ability passed on to Levidras to be able to use as well if you didn't use it the turn you had the original Levidras on the Vanguard. And then having the same plus 10, minus 10 power remove every time your opponent would attack, or you would attack with one of your own markers as well. For the rest of the Grade 3s, we're running 3 copies of the new Knight of Formosity Charmnet. From the drop, if there are 3 or more of your Infinity markers and you do not have a rear guard with the same card name as that card, Soul Blast 1 and call this card to rear guard. So this just gives you a setup for a Grade 3 on the field from the drop. So it can be good discard cost as long as you Soul Blast the proper cards to call it out onto the field. And on rear guard circle, when this unit attacks, if the Infinity Eye markers in the same column as this unit, retire another rear guard. This unit get plus 10 to the end of that battle. At the end of the battle, retire this unit and draw a card. So sending it back up in the drop zone for you to be able to call out again the following turn, just having those, Infinity markers of yours on the rear guard circles to be able to call out to begin with. For the Grade 2s, we're running 4 copies of the Onfall Antogastar. When it's placed on rear guard, if your Infinity Eye marker is in the same column as this unit, Energy Blast 3, look at the top 2 cards of your deck, choose a card from among them, put it into the hand, put the rest on the top or bottom of the deck, and it gets plus 5 to end of turn. So very, very useful. And during your turn, if you have a Grade 3 or Grade Vanguard with Levidras in its card name, there are 3 or more of your Infinity Eye markers. This card gets plus 5. If your back row has no other rear guards in the same column as this unit can attack from the back row, giving you the multiple attack option as long as you just have the 1 to use for the back row rear guard attack using this card. But still, having that Infinity marker on the back row rear guard can help with the boost that this card may need to be able to attack into your opponent's units. We're also running 4 copies of Skulk Claw's Huntsman, Huli. When it's placed on rear, if your Infinity Eye marker is in the same column as this unit, counterblast 1, choose up to 1 grade 3 or less card from your drop, call it to rear guard. If there are 3 or more of your Infinity Eye markers, this unit gets plus 10 till end of turn. So this is just an additional call resource, because one of the bigger weaknesses in the deck is obviously not being able to have enough rear guards to be able to perform the multiple attacks that this deck is able to do at the full power. So this card, just for the use of a counterblast, can give you more cards on the rear guard, and all you have to do is have an Infinity Eye marker in the same column as this unit, which is very easy to do in this deck also. For the grade 1s, we're running 4 copies of Full Knowledge Foxel. During the battle, this unit boosted. If you have a grade 3 Vanguard with Levidras card name, this card gets plus 5,000. And when this unit boosts to grade 3 Vanguard with Levidras, and your opponent has an Infinity Eyes marker, this unit gets plus 2,000 to the end of that battle. Counterblast 1. Choose one of your back row rear guards until the end of that turn that you can attack from the back row, and it gets plus 10,000. So on top of the back row attack you could have with Onfall, you could also have another rear guard be able to attack from the back row circle using this grade 1 for that counterblast cost. With the other grade 1s being 3 copies of Knight of Silent Illusion Clarence. At the end of the battle, this unit attack or boosted. If your Infinity Eye marker in the same column as this unit and you did not countercharge this turn, put it into the soul and countercharge 1. So this is meant to be for the fact that you could potentially attack with Clarence from the back row if you use it for Foxel's ability, and then still providing the countercharge that it would have had if it boosted or attacked on its own. Having that option for the additional power you can give it with the Infinity marker, which if you haven't seen the Infinity markers, these are what the markers are used to represent on both your opponents and your own rearguard circles. And then we're also running 3 of the new grade 1 Inquisitive Squirrel. On the rear guard once per turn. At the end of the battle, this unit boosted. Soul Blast 1. Move this unit to an open back row rear guard. If you moved it to a rear guard with your Infinity Eye marker, stand this card and it gets plus 5 to the end of that turn. So this also gives you the option for the boosted play to then be able to move this card to an open rear guard circle that it boosted. So then you can have this card attack from that back row rear guard as the additional attack to use against your opponent as well. With the last of the grade 1s being the Sentinel of choice, which you can fit in with either of choice, Custodial Dragon, Honeycomb Thyrus, or the Alejandro, depending on which ones you have, just for this spot as additional units to be able to guard against your opponent. And then the only order that we run in the deck is searching for Infinite Knowledge. This is just a search using our Energy Blast for a card from the drop zone, giving it a plus 5 for each of your Infinity Eye markers in the same column as that called unit. So an extra power boost, depending on what you call off of this card as well, and just making use of the Energy Blast ability, not having to use any of your Soul Blasting or your Counter Blasting for this card. For the trigger lineup, ideally I would want to run the 7 critical, so we'd have the 4 copies of the Aspiring Maiden Alana, but my buddy Nick only had the fronts for the spot place for the next spot, so we have the Harris for the 3 front trigger that we would run for the additional critical spot right here, with the next spot being the 4 draws. The Lena would be the preferred draw for the 5k shield, and then 4 of the heals. The new heals can be fine, just the generics to run, with our over trigger being the Blessed Favor for the additional heal power and still the additional pressure that can put on top of Levidras' own Divine skill. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed. Once again, big thanks to my buddy Nick for letting me borrow the deck for the update. That's what set 5 is mostly meant to be. Updates to a variety of cards and decks from the Season 2 set. But as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and Kira Qualia out.